Hi, my name is Bianca Ortiz Diaz, and I will be going over how to identify if a reaction at equilibrium will produce more products or reactants given the value of K in the chapter of chemical equilibrium. The problem reads, when the following reactions come to equilibrium, does the equilibrium mixture contain mostly reactants or mostly products? And before we dive into the question, we should go over some things about K. So we have this generic reaction of A plus B goes to C plus D. And if we can recall from kinetics that the rate of the forward equals the rate of the reverse, we can write it out like this, like I wrote it out. And then if we want to isolate K, we can write it out like this. And we get that the value of K forward divided by KR equals big K, which is the equilibrium constant. And we get that the equilibrium constant K equals the concentration of the products over the concentration of the reactants. So now that we know this, there's two things that you need to know as well. So if the value of K is greater than 1, then the concentration of the products is greater than the concentration of the reactants. And this drives the reaction in the forward direction. And if K is less than 1, then the concentration of the products is less than the concentration of the reactants. And this drives the reaction in the reverse direction. So now that we know this, we can apply it to the problem. Reading the problem again, it says, when the following reactions come to equilibrium, does the equilibrium mixture contain mostly reactants or mostly products? So let's look at A. First of all, let's check if our equation is balanced. So there's 2 nitrogens and 2 oxygens on each side, which is perfect. So when we look at the value of K, we see that K equals 1.5 times 10 to the negative 10. So K is less than 1. And we know that if K is less than 1, then the concentration of the products is less than the concentration of the reactants. And if that's the case, this drives the reaction in the reverse direction. And if this reaction goes in the reverse direction, ultimately it produces more reactants. Let's look at B. Let's check if it's balanced. 2 sulfurs on each side and 6 oxygens on each side. So the value of K is 2.5 times 10 to the 9th. So K is greater than 1 for this reaction. And if K is greater than 1, we know that the concentration of the products is greater than the concentration of the reactants. And that this reaction wants to go in the forward direction. And if this reaction wants to go in the forward direction, it will ultimately produce more products. For C, let's check if it's balanced. 2 hydrogens and 2 bromines on each side. And the value of K is 5.8 times 10 to the negative 18th. So K is less than 1 for this problem. And if K is less than 1, we know that the concentration of the products is less than the concentration of the reactants. and that this reaction wants to go in the reverse direction. And if the reaction wants to go in the reverse direction, it will ultimately produce more reactants. So from this, we know that with what we know about K, we can identify if a reaction at equilibrium will contain mostly products or mostly reactants. Thank you.